Do you dream of working somewhere like Google or Amazon, but you're not an engineer or a computer programmer? Well, those companies are massive corporations that have plenty of other areas like finance, legal, marketing and communications, account strategists, account managers, HR, so many other areas. They are looking for non-tech people, but how do you get a non-tech role at a tech company? What are they looking for? Well, today we're going to talk about it, and I'm actually bringing on my friend and fellow career YouTuber, Holly Lee. She is ex-Google, Amazon, Facebook, now Meta. She's been at them all, and she's here to share her tips with you. So let's jump over to my conversation with Holly. Okay, hi Holly. So I introduced you very briefly in my intro, but if you want to give an introduction of yourself to the group, how you would introduce yourself, go right ahead.
My name is Holly. I am a career coach. I spend my background with startup and 90% of the Matane company. My entire background is in recruiting and interview training, not as a coach, but for the companies such as Amazon, where they have a program on top of your 9 to 5 or 9 to 12 hour job a day. I also teach what is called making great hiring decisions. So I have a really strong passion on getting interviewers and candidates being interview ready.
Today, we're talking about those non-tech roles at tech companies. Just starting off, I would love to chat a little bit about what are the transferable skills that you see being really big in the non-tech roles at tech companies.
This may come in surprising to a lot of people, but I don't know if you experience this, Cassandra. At least like a lot of my messages, I'm sure you get the same too as a content creator, where everyone is so frantic and so nervous about interviewing. Do I have the right skill? Is it relevant? Oh my gosh, I don't have any cloud experience. This is AWS. You don't really need any of that, especially for non-tech positions. You just really need to have the right aptitude, the attitude. Employer, it's Amazon, it's Facebook, it's startup even. They just wanted to know if you're willing to roll up your sleeve and learn and figure it out. That alone is a skill they can't teach. So if I were to give any opinion or advices, I would say the first thing is, how do you show up smart with what you have already been doing and spend less time in worrying about how to get into the ABC company because, oh my God, you've never worked for a big player before, because that's no longer the case. It's never been the case, actually.
Definitely. But I think in saying that, that is a little bit of the challenge in that at the tech companies, and I worked in recruiting at Riot for a while.
I love Riot.
So when I worked at Riot, I was like, these people are smart.
Mhm.
But a lot of that is what you said. It's a roll up your sleeves. It's how do we get this done? How do we figure this out? Not being afraid to try something. And a lot of people at companies outside tech, you're handed a protocol
Mhm.
and you do these things. And there's not as much figuring it out. So I think really what you're saying is, even in your job that you have right now that's outside tech, figure out how can you innovate? How can you try something new? Or how can you, and like, don't overthink. I'm not saying you have to create the world's newest, biggest program. I'm saying where's something where you, not even innovate, where's something where you can take initiative or try, because that's what you have to showcase in an interview, right?
Yeah, no, I
Does that make
agree.
sense?
No, I agree. I think we're on the same page. It's just that I've had, and the reason why I made that comment, I'm very transparent here.
Yeah.
Like some of my clients are from already at the big player, like the Google, the Amazon bar racer. I wrote an endorsement on the senior executive at Google, even like all of those folks. It's the same thing. So whatever struggling they have in landing a job in other big player from someone who hasn't worked for any of those companies are really the same thing. And they didn't get hired because their background was at Google or Facebook, right? They get hired because the interviewer trusts that they're smart enough to figure things out. And I talk a lot about thinking big and diving deep. It's not an Amazon thing. I think that's
it is an Amazon thing, but it crosses borders.
Amazon thing,
Yes.
but it's an Amazon thing, but I feel like, it's something where, and I know you get this a lot too, when people come to us, job seeker that is, can you please give me a quick tip here, a quick tip there? That's mean the lack lacking ownership or diving deep and thinking big. I use those two a lot in coaching just about anybody, because the interviewers, employers, even like you and I, and we're talking about building our own team here, Cassandra, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to show up where we feel that you are smart enough to figure it out, ask intelligent question. You don't know what those questions are? Guess what? You're watching her right now. Cassandra's got a whole library of everything you need, right? Did you actually do your due diligence before asking them those questions? So I think the way how job seekers show up on our YouTube channel asking us question is the same thing of how they show up during the actual interview. So being able to go really deep, doing the research, doing the homework, and being able to know what they're getting themselves into rather than wasting the interviewer's time and asking them those questions.
Right. Because that shows
follow-up question.
Right. Because that shows who you would be on the job. You know, this goes to like informational interviews. I don't understand when someone goes, well, do you know of any openings at the company? Yeah, I have Google to look it up. I have Indeed. Do you have Indeed? Why do I now work for you? Like, I don't work for you. You should have come. There's a difference between saying that and saying, you know, I researched online yesterday and I saw that you have a marketing coordinator position open. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that department and what you think they're really looking for that's maybe not in the job description. Then I know you've done something. Then I know you're trying, and now that person can help you. And I think it's that attitude all the way through, from the networking to the interview itself to on the job, because that shows me who you'd be on the job. You're the person who's going to sit there and go, I'm going to go as far as I can go, and then I'll ask a question. Like, I think sometimes people think we're like, oh, you shouldn't ask questions. No, like you said, it's ask intelligent questions. Have you done all your research and this is where you're ending up? And now you don't know the final step, or now I don't know this blind spot over here. And I think what you're talking about, dive deep, you know, those sorts of things.
I know. I'm sounding a little bit Amazonian here. Let me tone that down.
No, well, I was going to say that's Amazon. But like we said, that goes across the board, because that goes to company culture at most of these companies. They don't all call it dive deep or things like that. But, you know, they love to say work hard, play hard, which I have some issues with. But those ideas of ownership kind of go throughout that other companies outside tech don't always give you. You have to find a way to translate that. But like you said, and even in my research on this and my own experience, you know, if you're going for a marketing job, you can tick all the boxes of, yes, you have the marketing skills they're looking for. But the big thing at the tech companies, more so than other companies, is the culture fit. Now, I know rules are changing around what that's called and if you can ask about, but the culture fit, the alignment with the mission and values. And I think that's where people really struggle. And so what we've just talked about, everyone, is like a really good way to show you're a culture fit. But are there any other ways that you think people could demonstrate that cultural connection?
You know what? I'm still stuck on what you said about cultural fit. I didn't think about that. I guess it makes a lot of sense now. A lot of the company are going through the online assessment and everyone freaks out. It's not an Amazon thing. A lot of company, even startups, are beginning to do that now, which is super smart, right? I know if you're watching this, you're probably thinking, what on earth are they talking? How do you know if I'm a culture fit? It's very easy. Because if an interviewer or if we're listening to you within the first minute, even depending the type of question you ask, B, how you show up, dictates that you actually know anything about this project or this role that you're interviewing for. Back to a little bit what you said about doing your research and your homework. I think that has a lot of relevancy. You hit a couple really interesting points. You mentioned networking as well. Cass, I don't teach any of my Accom students or member how to apply for job or any of that. It's all about the networking. And I think you have the entire library of that. If I remember.
And it's half of my course too. People want my course for the resume and LinkedIn and don't want to watch the back half. And the back half is what's going to get you the job. And it's all how to network.
I mean, don't you also feel like from the moment we talk about networking, people just kind of stop watching us or stop listening, right? But I think that's one of the key things. If I were to give any tips to job seekers for 2022, You need to, I know a lot of folks could be introvert. You don't have to be an extrovert, but you need to know how to leverage people or in your industry that had way more experience than you, because those are all potential hiring manager or refer you to the right people with their company. And that is a skill that you need to master if you want to land an interview or land an offer, right? It's actually teaching them how to be in the corporate environment versus just getting an interview. Now you have the interview. How are you going to pass the interview? So that's two different things.
Yes. And I think with that, I always like to remind people networking is relationship building. That's why I like it. You have to be open to, you don't know what's going to happen. So they might end up getting you a job. You might end up finding them their new nanny or the best restaurant to go to on vacation. Like, don't think you don't have something to give too. It could be something really like what you weren't thinking about, not work related, but you have something to give also. But especially for those changing from careers outside tech to in tech, that referral is so important because they're not seeing a resume of Amazon, Google, Meta, etc. They're seeing Wells Fargo or a higher ed institution or whatever. And so you having that referral of so-and-so told me to look at your resume, that's key, right?
And how to also make the person who's referring you work hard for you instead of saying, here, recruiter, look at, I have this great resume, rather than that refers should be, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, I know this person. I think you should jump on a call with them. And that is like an immediately phone screen or even direct to onsite.
Yeah.
So we call it.
And everyone stop networking with recruiters. I love a recruiter, but like that is not the decision maker.
You realize recruiters are not going to like us after this, right?
I know. Well, I love recruiters and I think they're worth it, but I actually think I'm helping them out by saying,
yes,
not everybody needs to be going to the recruiter all the time. Get to know the departments you want to be in. And I think too, this kind of goes with something you said earlier, like when we're talking about skills for non-tech people to get in tech roles, it is not just all the skills of what you're checking a box on a job, like what we're talking about, research and all that. It's the skills in the job search to get you to that point. And one of them is the skills of interviewing and things are different. And so that's why you do need to, you network with people, not just to get you the referral, but to also give you the information of, wait, would I actually like working at this company? Would I be good at this? And things like, hey, here's what you need to know in an interview. And this is why they should watch your channel and watch my interview videos. One of the ones I share all the time is one of my friends, he works at a software as a service company, tech. And one of the questions he asked, and I have a video on this, one of the questions he asks is, it's not really a question, it's a statement, make me eggs. And he said that if they just start giving the answer of how they make eggs, they're automatically out because they didn't ask him questions. And his wife was telling me that this is one of the things. And I said, oh, I would have been out. She goes, no, I think you know enough to know to ask questions. And I go, no, I come from a background where I didn't know I can ask an interviewer something.
That is true. What they don't know, they don't know.
Right. Like I think I'm supposed to deal with the ambiguity and figure it out on my own. Or maybe it's a question on detail. And did I get all the steps? I don't know. I didn't know before that like, oh, it's a two-way street and I can ask questions like, well, what kind of eggs do you like? Well, where are we? Well, whatever, and get the context. And she's like, no, I think you would have done it. I go, I promise you, I didn't know that was a thing because in certain areas, that's not a thing. I come from entertainment where when you're asked a question in an interview, you answer the question, right? I knew basic interview skills on that. You answer the question. In higher ed, they love to ask multiple part questions, 3 questions in one, right? And I'm on interview committees and the candidate, as they're being asked the question, is writing down the question. And I'm like, what? You can write it down? Because that's not a thing from the industry I came from.
Yeah, industries are very different. You got a great point there.
And so I think that's another piece of networking is to be able to chat and ask questions about like, what's the interview process, right? Like, can I do this? Can I do that? Because years ago, if somebody had asked me, can I write down the question? I would have gone, no. Part of it is that you were retaining. You can ask them to repeat it, but you can't write. And now I'm like, oh yeah, you can write it. Don't write it
Yeah,
word for
there's
word, but
something
jot
wrong.
notes.
I think the interviewer will respect you more if you're actually asking for clarification.
Yes.
Especially for, it's not just tech, especially for non-tech as well. A lot of people just dive right deep. But, playing devil's advocate here, I get it. I get it. A lot of people give direct answer because you think, as you mentioned, Cass, earlier, it's wrong to do it. Just get to the point, right? Get to the content. This is how we used to train a lot of job seeker. But now, just remember, when people are interviewing, there are so many candidates in the pipeline right now. And that one hiring manager, even though they have a lot of open slot, but they're also interviewing for a high volume, trimming it down to fill like the 1 to 3 positions, right? So they're hearing the same thing over and over again. So it's really great to not just ask clarifying questions, but intelligent, like how you make an egg. I'm going to steal that if you don't mind. I'm going to ask my cohort that, how do you guys make an egg? It's really cool. I never thought about that before because for me, it hit me. If someone asked me that, I'm probably going to pass the interview because I'm so particular with my eggs. But if you don't have the relevancy background for non-tech going to a tech company, the biggest thing that I could advise for a lot of those professionals is taking a practitioner or certification to learn more about the exposure. It's not going to take you months, by the way. You can get it fairly quickly. It's not that expensive. A lot of people have done it. For instance, a lot of the account manager, account executive, the sales, biz dev people, marketing people, you mentioned program manager, a whole ton of them, they're all non-tech. So if you can speak to what is an AWS infrastructure, you just need the basic knowledge or Google Cloud, whatever tech company you chose, right? So I would highly encourage taking a certification or some type of practitioner just so that you can stand away from everyone who's going after the same job.
Again, in all honesty, like what we're talking about is still being curious, doing the research. Like that is going to be your biggest skill that you need to beef up on to be able to start doing things in the cultural way of these companies. What do you think too about acting fast? Tech companies move faster and slower at the same time, right?
Yes.
Like they iterate, they try something, it dies. And
oh my God, this is such a great example of what the topic here is. Asking probing questions. Did you all see that? Did you all see what she just did to me?
Acting fast.
Well, it depends on what you mean by acting fast. You caught me off guard there, and I really appreciate that. I didn't give her an answer.
On the outside, so I'll use, for example, I was there when they were making Game 2. I was there, it's 10 years ago. Game 2 finally came out, I think like a year and a half ago, 9 years later. And they were working on it before me. So in that sense, it feels slow. But behind the scenes, they're trying something, moving on, trying something, moving on, trying something, moving on, and it moves fast. And I have a friend who was talking to someone who moved from a different industry into Amazon, and things he said was, it goes much faster here. A supervisor would say, hey, or a director or whatever would say, I need a deck about blah, blah, blah. And he'd say, okay, I can get that to you in a month. And she went, a month? I need it on Friday.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big change. Do you have thoughts on how to show that you act fast, even if you're not currently in a fast environment?
I like to focus on the content, or I call them the meat. What exactly is your added value? Interview coaching, as an example, right? 1,000 coaches operate very, very differently. It's really funny because if someone were to ask me, how long does it take to land a job offer at this FAANG company? I would say, well, depends. If you're starting from zero, I would say at the bare minimum 3 months. I say that because I've helped a lot of people and it takes them that time frame. But however, if you're already at a FAANG company, a few weeks, right? Because it's going to take you a few weeks to know what you're talking about. You don't need relevant experience, but you need the meat. You need to get to the meat quickly, right? Yeah. So how do you move fast, but slow down? And I think it's important to just take 10 steps back to know what you're focusing on. And we talk about research quite a few times. Do the right thing and then go forward. So I think it's important to pause, slow down before we go faster so that we're not wasting our effort in all the wrong thing. And here's another devil's advocate again. I've heard so many of this, but Holly, I don't have the experience. How do I know if I'm a fit to like Amazon, right? I would say, well, don't focus on that. Focus on what exactly have you done here? Because I guarantee you, All you maybe need to do is change your business acumen or vocabulary because every culture, company culture is very different. You may move as fast as like the Amazon as an example, but what you don't know is what you don't know about the expectation in the interview. So when you think about the company of your choice and look at the core value or leadership principle, right? Every company call them differently, but if you put the lens a little closer, they're all the same. For example, Facebook, Google, Amazon all have this thing called customer centric, customer obsession, right? Facebook call it moving fast. Amazon call it bias for action. It's the same vocabulary. So if you're really looking at it carefully, you just have to make sure that when we are communicating, it's actually addressing into the culture and talk about the meat of your added value and nothing else.
And with that, so then I would say one of those like slowing down things before going faster, because I know that once you get a call and you seem like a good fit, things can move fast at these companies in terms of hiring. So I think you need to be looking at those cultures, mission, values early and going, do I have examples of doing this? How have I been customer centric? How do I have a bias for action? And then this is where I would challenge, if you don't have an example, start working on it.
Yes. And stop worrying about taking interviews. Stop working on creating that.
Because you're not going to be a fit. You could get the interview, but they're going to end up saying no because you didn't have a bias for action. So figure out what can you start doing to have that bias for action.
I know that our topic today is about helping non-tech folks get into tech company. However, I'm dying to ask you this.
Okay.
What are you also seeing? Because there's just so many people who are calling themselves out to say, I'm not ready. I don't even know if I have relevant experiences, but I have all this recruiter calling me. Should I cancel my interview? How do you feel about that? It doesn't matter if it's tech or non-tech.
I think you always take the interview. Why are you canceling yourself out? Like, see, that's just a fear of rejection to me. I'll back out before they can tell me no and hurt my feelings. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. I just want to hear like different perspective. I think that all of us, the reason why when a recruiter or any employer, even hiring manager these days, reach out to job seekers, they reach out to you because you already have.
They see something.
Yeah, they see something that you are a potential fit. The only reason that you don't make it through is because you don't believe in yourself. Yeah. I get it. And not being able to know how to prepare yourself to go from zero to actually making it through the interview process.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. I think there's the belief in self of, oh, why would they? I think sometimes there's two different types of people. They're the ones who think, well, why wouldn't they hire me on everything? And then they have nothing to back up why they should hire you. Or there's the lack of belief in self of, oh, I'm not good enough for it. And I think where it can be helped is when you start developing these stories, when you start creating I have shown bias for action before. Oh, I have seen this happen. Then you realize, oh, I am good enough for this role. Oh, I can do that. Like, I always think action takes away anxiety in whatever form. That doesn't mean doing something just to do it, but purposefully taking action. So I think there is something around, number one, knowing this person believes in me. They wouldn't have called if they're not wasting their time calling you just to be nice. They're calling you because they see there's something there. And then all you have to do on the call is confirm that what they saw is there.
Yep. It's a two-way street.
Start getting the little bit of belief because this person reached out to you. But then secondly, start making those connections. And I do think there are times, I had this in my own job searches in the past, that there were certain jobs that I went, wow, I'd really like to go for that. But I truly did not have the experiences or qualifications. And I'm not talking about I thought I needed 10 out of 10. I'm saying I didn't have 2, I'd worked.
Yep. That's true. That's a very good point.
So then that's when you go, instead of feeling defeated and going, oh, I don't have it. Where could you be a year from now if you started working on those things instead of just going, oh, I don't have it? But I think sometimes people just cancel because they'd rather cancel it out than being told no. Being rejected sucks.
It is, but even if you don't have the experience, companies don't look for 100% fit. I don't know.
No. Oh no, I agree. Yeah, I've talked about
they
that
don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even have relevant experience. I gave an example, one of my recent live stream, that one of my best all-time hire in my entire career is a pizza delivery driver. That is true. That is a fact. And that person is a senior program manager at Amazon still. But when she was hired, she was a coordinator, just helping like schedule interviewed. And the reason why she was hired was because she said, I have no experience, but here's what I can do to learn. And just her appetite to learn was so strong where if you're able to make the interviewer, especially the hiring manager, feel that you're not going to waste your time, you will do everything you can to be successful because you can tell by their tone of confidence, that the willingness of not allowing themselves to fail, right?
Yep.
That's a pure example of being very highly ambitious, but having 0 ounce of corporate experience.
Did she had proof of how she learned in the past?
I don't like that you're asking me these questions. Yes, of course. This girl liked to catch me up. By the way, we didn't even script any of this. We didn't have questions in advance. I love it. I love this stuff. What really did it for me, first of all, I had to convince my peer to interview her because I was looking for balancing out my team, not all senior, but senior, junior, room for growth and whatnot. I asked her this one question. I said, you know what? I really like your appetite. You obviously can roll up your sleeve and learn, but why should I hire you? I have 25 people right now coming from all these tech companies, including Facebook. Why do you think you're a better fit? She looked at me in my eyes. And for the first time, I was like, oh my God, did she really talk to me that way? She said, listen, by the way. I'm like, what? Yeah. She said, listen, Holly, I realize I'm very different, but let me tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm taking care of my brother. I'm in school full time. I have no choice to pick up a swing shift. Yes, I deliver pizza in the evening, but I also have another job. I'm also in school trying to finish out my degree. It's just that I'm hearing they're not excuses. This is planned. All of her strategy in getting the right job in corporate. I'm like, wow, I was blown away. And I asked her the second question. So what would you say is the one thing that you're really proud of that could make me feel that you have no problem being in front of all of these hiring managers and figure things out on your own? And she looked at me again. it's the way she was looking at me of confident. Holly, I didn't have money. I replaced the brake pad on my car to get it. Has nothing to do with recruiting, by the way, or scheduling or corporate. And I didn't even have to ask her, how did you take off your brake pad? She was walking me through just in a couple of minutes. I was so blown away. And then I said, how long did it take you? It took me the entire day to do that. I did it because rather than paying thousands of dollars to bring my car in the shop, I took care of my own. I figured it out. I Googled everything. She was diving so deep. And that's how I knew she knew how to do that. I felt like whatever.
And it was a brake pad example.
It was a great example. It was easy to follow.
Right. Because that's the thing. I think a lot of times people think it has to be specifically about work, and it doesn't. Like, right. I talk to a lot of college students, and you ask them, how do you manage your time? Something as basic as how do you manage your time? And they're just kind of like, well, I go to my class schedule. I'm like, what? No, you have a part-time job. You have an internship that you drive an hour for. You still pick up your brother after school at 3 p.m. every day to help out your mom, and you still see your friend. Like, how are you doing that? Use your whole life as examples on things. Don't be afraid to say, let me show you how fast I learn. I figured out a brake pad.
Yeah. I mean, everyone I know is very anxious right now. Everybody, I mean, at least what I'm hearing, a lot of the folks are interested in working for maintain company, top company. Good for you, but you can. It happens. The pizza delivery person is just one example. Ex-military chopping lumber for a living. True story. That was one of my employee at Facebook, right? That's it. Nonprofit teaching kids how to read has nothing to do with corporate, still gets a job because of their willingness of it's not just learning, but picking things and rolling with it and not being afraid to look at me in the eye and give it to me.
Yeah.
That may sound a little inappropriate for your channel, Cass, but
no, it's okay.
When someone's able to convince me, they're able to figure it out.
Well, because I think what you're talking about when you say, look me in the eye and do that is there's an assurance, there's a confidence. You're not saying a cockiness or an overly assertiveness, right? Because that would be a different thing. But it's an assurance of if I don't, and this goes to the belief thing, if I'm not talking with the belief I should get it, why should you believe me?
Yeah.
So it's coming with that belief to the interview of like, Holly, listen, this is why I'm a great fit.
Yes. Even now, when things are still in the virtual space, I think it's important, for instance, if an interviewer pronounce your name wrong, right? Correct them. I love it when someone corrects me because it's letting them know that you have backbone. And all companies love that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Yes, I'm somebody who's very picky about name pronunciation. We could talk about this for a long time. If y'all liked this, let us know. We could do it again. Holly and I chat about career stuff all the time. So
yes, we do.
That is it with Holly.
And by the way, I've been following this girl for years when I was in baby and don't even know what YouTube is. Years.
Well, and now I follow you. Holly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Until next time.
Wasn't that great? So I hope y'all enjoyed that conversation. I am actually now doing practice interview packages specifically for non-tech roles at tech companies. So I would love for you to look into that at the link in the description box below. You can also check out Holly's channel below. And that's it for today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and I'll see you next time. Bye.